is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to another great episode of the program The Bridge, airing on US Arab Radio and live streaming on Facebook. Today we are discussing a very timely and important topic. In fact, the most timely and most important topic, the US presidential race, which is of course unprecedented and full of so many surprises and exciting news and events. What is next for America? What could be expected out of this race, and what could be expected for the Arab American community in particular? To discuss these very important and timely topics are Mr. Khalil Jahshan, who is the Executive Director of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. He's a longtime activist on Arab affairs and American policy, and Ambassador Massoud Maalouf, who is a retired Lebanese ambassador who served in several countries all over the world, and he is a public speaker, an international and Arab media commentator and analyst. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me. I will start with you, Mr. Khalil, and ask about this unprecedented U.S. presidential race. This has been a very unusual, between brackets, unprecedented race in so many ways. What are some of the most important highlights of this U.S. presidential race that really makes it stand out and makes it very distinct compared to any other race in the past?
Certainly, it's not the first nor the last presidential elections that this country has witnessed since its inception. However, this one tends to be very unique in the sense that, and again, it's not the only time in American history, but we've never seen the country divided right in the middle in terms of what people want to see, not only in terms of the present, but in terms of the future. So this element of division right in the middle, the bifurcation, if you will, of the country at this time makes this particular election very, very unique. It's almost a fight over the future of the United States of America. There are two perceptions, two concepts that are competing here. A Democratic, of course, party-affiliated concept and a Republican party-affiliated concept. The only problem is the elections are happening in a very crucial and weird time where both parties have somewhat imploded, have faced some serious internal difficulty. The Republican Party, we know, is no longer the Republican Party that we have known for years. It is not the Reagan Republican Party. It's not the Bush's party. It's totally different. It's basically been hijacked by a new crowd. They call themselves Republicans, but they are not traditional Republicans by any stretch of the imagination. It might as well formally seek to change its name to the Trump Party rather than the Republican Party. Same thing with the Democrats. The Democrats have been through some turmoil internally that came to the forefront, and it proved that the party itself is not also united the way it used to be. And therefore, we had in an unforeseen circumstance, an abnormal situation, the main candidate of the party for the presidential race pulls out of the race. That hasn't happened in 50 years. So it is a unique election in that sense.
Absolutely. And there are also other very interesting events which also happened that certainly have some kind of impact on this particular race. One of them, of course, most significantly was the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Ambassador Maalouf, would you like to comment on this particular incident and the possible or potential implications it really has on this particular presidential race?
Yeah, I think Mr. Jahshan has said quite a bit, about these elections, and I agree with what he said. I would add one thing is, in general, the elections, the presidential elections, and even the legislative elections in the U.S. are the first topic is the economy and is internal issues. This time there is a little bit something different. There are two wars outside in which the United States are involved, and these two wars in Ukraine and in Israel, Gaza, these two wars have become somewhat a topic in the elections, in the campaigns. So now the voters will have to take these two things into consideration. The Ukraine war, of course, the Democrats support the Biden administration position, the help that has been, the assistance that has been given to Ukraine, while of course the Republicans, which are no more Republicans as Khalil said, but they are now the party of Trump, they follow what Trump say, and we have heard him say that he will finish the war in one day, and we know what he means when he says he will finish the war. He will give everything to Putin, to the Russian president, and he will stop the assistance, military and financial and political assistance to Ukraine. So these two wars will be involved, will be questions that the electors will take into consideration this time, beside, of course, the economic and the other regular issues that are part of the campaigns. Yeah.
Indeed. I also want to come back with you, Mr. Khalil, about this point about the effect of the attempted assassination on Donald Trump on his chances of winning this race. It's a well-known fact that he is, quote unquote, a populist leader, meaning he really knows how to address the popular base, which are very much supportive of him, especially MAGA, Make America Great Again, of course, and also how to address public opinion and the media in general. How do you think he's going to really kind of capitalize on this particular incident to increase his own support and his own popularity in this race?
He is definitely, as you described him, a populist candidate, bordering on, of course, demagoguery, which most populist candidates anywhere in the world tend to portray in the midst of election. The problem is the mixture. It's a very explosive mixture when you have a populist candidate in a very divisive situation where the country is split in the middle with a lot of tensions, and that demagoguery tends to increase the intensity of the conflict, where people on both sides begin to question the legitimacy of the other, not only in terms of their views, particularly in a democratic country where every one of us is supposed or entitled to have different perspectives, whether on the economy or on foreign policy or what have you. But even in terms of your own legitimacy as a citizen. So you hear this sentiment being kind of, people are being questioned, are they real Americans? What is a real American, for God's sake? I mean, if this country with the history, that unique history that it has had as an immigrant, a country of immigrants coming from all over the world with various backgrounds, if you begin to question the legitimacy or the Americanism, quote unquote, of each one of us, it will fall apart. And so that is the danger of this type of election when demagoguery and populism tends to prevail.
Absolutely. And based on all of this discussion, I would like to ask you also, Mr. Jahshan, the question about the selling points for each party, for the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. What are the selling points through which each party is going to try to position itself to its own voters to appeal to them? And in this particular case, also, we can comment on Harris versus Trump. What are the selling points that each of them is going to try to position himself or herself for the voters?
Even though the campaign is at its early stage, considering the fact that the withdrawal of Biden from the race, it's a new race, essentially, and a new campaign. But even though it is at its earliest phase, I would say the parameters are already being set real quickly within the first 24 hours. Each party is trying to claim to be the most genuine representative of what the American street wants, what the American voter wants, what the American citizenship in general want. At the same time, of course, we see the distraction from the populist, let's say, behavior on particularly the Republican side, questioning the legitimacy of people, including the candidate. I mean, we have members of Congress and other leaders in the Republican Party questioning the legitimacy and the experience of the Democratic candidate for president. Is she genuine? Is she American? I mean, we've heard that before. It's not new. But in the context, as I said, of the divisions within the country, it tends to almost feel like you're dealing with two countries or two societies. rather than one. But each party basically is right now trying to emphasize the forte, if you will, or the strength of its main candidate. The Republicans, of course, traditionally, and Massoud, with his economic background, can comment on that better than I do. The emphasis is on the economy. We are going to make this failed economy. They consider the economy right now is failed, even though the Democrats can make a good case for progress over the past 3.5 years that are unprecedented in terms of job expansion and what have you. But they're arguing exactly the opposite. And that's what they mean when you mentioned earlier, MEGA, making America great again. Of course, they mean first and foremost economically. But the other side is talking about the inclusion. It's talking about the Democratic Party being this wide, broad tent that accepts and incorporates people of all kinds of ethnic, religious, and racial background. And they point to the weakness of the other side in terms of those respects. So I have a feeling it's going to continue to intensify in this tug of war between now. It's not quite ideological, but it has, I would say, an ideological flavor to it between now and November 5th.
Absolutely. And everybody's trying to own the quote unquote genuine American narrative. We are more American than you. Although, of course, we know that America is this melting pot. Everybody is coming from somewhere else, right? And there is nobody who's really American except the native Indians. So everybody else is coming from elsewhere. But I really want to build on this notion of the selling points and come to you, Ambassador Maalouf, with what selling points do you think are going to be most appealing from each party for the Arab American community in particular? When we talk about the American public as a whole, that's one thing. And when we talk about the Arab American community, it might have its own priorities, its own agendas, its own interests. What do you think would be the most important selling points for each party and each candidate for the Arab American community in particular?
We have seen that when President Biden was still a candidate, how the Arab American community was a little bit clearly against him. So in the primaries, we have seen how many undetermined have voted, especially in the swing states, Michigan in particular, where people voted more than 100,000 votes were undetermined. And we know that these swing states were won by President Biden in the last election in 2020. So this is very important states. These are very important states, and the candidates now have to work on it. President or former President Trump was in Wisconsin for the convention, and we have heard that we have seen how after the assassination attempt, his support has increased a little bit. But then when after the withdrawal of President Biden and the candidacy of Kamala Harris, she has been doing very well. She's on a good start, and yesterday she was in Wisconsin. Today she is in Indiana, and the fact that she has not attended today the Congress, the Netanyahu speech in the Congress, I think it's a good point for her. She could have delayed her meeting with the community, with the voters in Indianapolis today, but she didn't want to do that. More and above, Patty Murray refused also herself to head the meeting today. So it ended up with Ben Cardin, who is, I think he is at the end of his term and he is leaving. So the Democrats have shown here, this is the first point, they have shown that probably they are taking into account the fact that Israel is overdoing it in Gaza. And Kamala Harris has done very well in not attending today the Congress. That's one point. Another point is probably with the Arab community. Maybe Kamala Harris should start telling the Arab American voters from now that she will work seriously on the two-state solution, that in the first days after her election, she will appoint a delegation, she will appoint people who will work on that with Israel and with the Arabs, with the Palestinians. This is a very important. We know that how President Biden, since early 2021, he talked about the two-state solution, but he never did anything in this respect, just talk only. So if Kamala Harris can convince the Arab voters that she will do something about that, and then if she can, tomorrow in her meeting, she will have a separate meeting with Netanyahu. If in this meeting she can impress on him the necessity of a ceasefire very urgently, very, very soon, and if she can raise the question about, she can tell him how much he has lied today in his speech in Congress in talking about there are no civilian deaths in Rafah, and that 40,000 trucks have crossed the border. President Biden was asking him day in and day out to let food come, to not starve the people, to protect civilians. If he was protecting civilians, then President Biden wouldn't be asking him to do that. So I think if she can start with these two important points with the Arab community, that will be very good to for probably get back some of the votes that the Democrats have been losing. I think that will be a good start for Kamala Harris in this respect.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I want to come to you, Mr. Jahshan, with the same question about the selling points for the Arab American community. But since Ambassador Maalouf covered the part about Harris and the Democratic Party and how they can possibly appeal to the Arab American community, what they can do differently in order to win the Arab American confidence and the Arab American vote. What about the Republican Party? What could the Republican Party possibly do or say, or hold as a slogan or an appeal in order to get the Arab American vote?
Let me just add one more thing, though, to the list which I agree with, that Massoud presented with regards to the Democrats. I think, generally speaking, the uniqueness of the Harris candidacy is going to be her gender and her color. And these are the two most important constituencies within the Democratic Party. This is the backbone of the Democratic vote. So she has to appeal to women and health rights pertaining to women and the economy pertaining from a woman's perspective. And of course, the issue of color, being the first vice president, a Black background or African-American background, and so on. So these will be continuing, I think. Two, as a person who spent many years working with the Arab American community, let me say that the Arab American community is not, including, of course, Muslim members of the community. So I would combine the two. I mean, we're talking about 3 to 4 million Arab Americans, and we're talking about 6 to 8 million Muslim Americans. Okay, between them, 10 to 12 million overlap in the community. They are not a monolithic community. We have our Republicans and we have our Democrats. So when you talk about arguing what should the Democratic Party, they are probably appealing to Arab and Muslim Democrats. And that includes, of course, half of the Muslim community, for example, that happens to be African American. They're not Arab. Their issues are African American. And so they sympathize with our other issues. So that the diversity of the campaign and the platform has to take all that complexity into consideration. Today, as we speak, there is a group now active, and I just got an email from them. They call themselves Arab American for Trump. Arab Americans for Trump. I don't know anybody in the Arab American community that is anxious to kind of support, but there are people, particularly in the business community, who have, as I said, in general, the community is not a single issue community, but there are some people who are single issue people within our community. For example, I know many friends in the business community who are well-to-do. Their sole purpose in this election is to minimize paying taxes. So they will choose the candidate that will make him pay less taxes. And that probably means Republicans. The same thing in terms of immigrants being attached to the Democratic Party. They feel more at home with the Democratic Party. So the recent immigrant community, which, by the way, is what? Probably more than half of our community belongs to that. Because it used to be that the majority of Arab Americans used to be from the old immigration, their second, third, fourth generation. Now we have a lot of new immigrants, and they tend to flock to the Democratic Party. So the swing states, as Massoud mentioned, play a very important role. So that In other words, the geographic distribution and concentration of Arab and Muslim Americans overlaps with these key states. So they might end up playing a role much larger than their actual size in the electorate. Even though we might be, 1 or 2% of the voters, but we might end up basically in some states, that's enough to tip the balance in favor of one candidate. In addition to all these issues, I just want to quickly mention, of course, Gaza as a key issue that ended up actually contributing. Most media is not talking about the role of Gaza in enforcing Biden to resign. I think it is a factor. It's not the only or the determining factor, but it played a key role because most of the youth and the opposition within even the Jewish community was motivated by Gaza, by the genocide that people have witnessed day in, day out. But the community has several issues that will continue to play a role in the campaign. Palestine is one of them, Gaza included. Lebanon is another one because of the size of the Lebanese community in this country. Syria, the same thing, the size of the Syrian, particularly in the business elite community, both Lebanese and Syrian. The issue of Yemen, particularly with the Houthi new element, added diversity to that, and Iraq. So these issues, I think, will remain also vital in the campaign.
Absolutely. It's very important to think about what are some of the issues that are really kind of in common between the Arab American / Muslim American community, but also some of the unique issues that might be particularly important for certain segments of this community or that community. We'll come back to this very important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Hey, Michigan drivers. Are you sending or answering group chats behind the wheel? Checking emails at the light? Calling family or friends on the commute? Michigan's hands-free law makes it illegal to manually use electronic devices while behind the wheel of a vehicle. Breaking the law could mean fines or even community service. Go hands-free, just drive. It's the law. Learn more at michigan.gov/distracted driving. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights. With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arab Network on all social media platforms.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and that's another great episode of the program, The Bridge. We are talking today about the most important and most timely topic, the U.S. presidential race. What's next for America? And what's next for the Arab American community? And with me this morning discussing this important and timely topic is Mr. Khalil Jahshan, who is the Executive Director of the Arab Center in Washington, and Ambassador Massoud Maalouf, who is a retired Lebanese ambassador. Ambassador Maalouf, do you have any kind of comments or remarks on what Mr. Jahshan just said before the break?
I think Mr. Jahshan covered the whole issue very, very well, and I agree with everything he said, so I don't have much to add to that. Thank you.
I just want to mention the point about the uncommitted voters, because that's something that you mentioned before, Ambassador Maalouf. That's a very important point. When the Arab American community was very upset and very disappointed with the mishandling of the Gaza crisis on the part of the Biden administration, there was really this kind of quote unquote uncommitted voters who said, we are not going to vote for Biden or for his opponent. We are going to completely abstain from voting. Now, how do you see that changing with the Harris candidacy? And how do you really see also the Harris versus Trump campaign being different from the Trump versus Biden campaign?
Let me add one thing about Harris and the Arab community first. I have read 2 days ago, and I'm not sure if it was true or not. We know that the husband of Kamala Harris is a Jewish person, and he had in his previous marriage, he had 2 daughters. One of them, who is 25 years old, according to this article that I read, has raised like more than $7 million for the kids of Gaza. And this is something really important if it's true. I'm not sure. I don't know if these news are true, but this is something, this is indicative. I don't know if it has been now published to help Kamala Harris within the Arab community, but I think it's something worth thinking about and worth mentioning. And Trump really is, I don't know what to say about Trump. I'm really shocked that there are so many tens of millions of Americans who support him just blindly like that. Whatever he says they agree with him, and it is really, and I cannot understand personally things like that. It happens in many other countries in the world, but in the United States, seeing things like that is really shocking to me. So I don't know who will have the advantage in these elections. Kamala Harris has done quite a bit of activities. She has started very well in her speeches. She has these elections, usually in the normal elections, normal campaigns, the candidates speak mostly about their program, and they criticize the program of the opponent. And they speak a little bit of the personality of the opponent criticize. But in these elections, especially before Biden withdrew, mostly they were talking about the persons of the candidate. Biden was focusing on the personality of Trump more than on his program and other things. And Trump was focusing on the personality of Biden. Now with Kamala Harris, she is doing the same thing a little bit, but also she is criticizing the program of the Republicans, which is very good. She is not focusing only on the dangers of Trump becoming president, but she is also talking about the program of the Republicans, especially with regard to the abortion. And this is a very important issue towards women in general.
The program of the Democrats, of the Democratic Party. Yeah.
Yes, and it's important for women whether they are Republican or whether they are Democrat. So I think she's doing a little bit more than people were expecting from her, because when she was vice president, she didn't have a big role to get herself known everywhere in the United States. She didn't have a file to worry about and to work on specifically to get known. Now she is getting known very quickly, and that's very good for her. While when we hear about the other candidates who are not bad, for instance, Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or whoever, but their field is their state. They are not at the level of the whole United States. And in foreign policy, they don't have any experience, while she has all these advantages on these others. So let's hope that things will get better in the very near future.
Thanks for this optimistic and hopeful outlook. And Mr. Jahshan, I come to you with 2 questions combined in one. The first one is based on what Ambassador Maalouf talked about in terms of Harris' ability to prepare quickly. We know that we are racing with time in the Democratic Party. She has only a few months left. Usually, preparations for an elections campaign at the presidential level takes more than 1 year at least. and now she has about 3 months only. Do you think she's going to be able to really race with time and be able to organize in the best way possible in order to win this race? And also, how do you expect the Harris versus Trump campaign to be different from the Biden versus Trump campaign?
First, I guess with regards to your earlier question in terms of her ability to prepare, definitely I think she has the disadvantage of a very short time schedule when you're talking about 105 days as we speak, right? Between now and the elections. That's not enough, really, under normal circumstances to wage a presidential campaign. However, she is not starting from scratch. We have to remember that she basically is taking over the lead of an existing campaign. And that's why the other side is nervous about that. I mean, Republicans sued today, by the way. They didn't sue about her taking over politically. They sued about her taking over financially. They want to deprive her of the $250 million that are in the coffers because that will be the backbone of her campaign. If she has to start from scratch, it's going to take her forever, even though she's proving to be a great fundraiser, or her name is. The problem with that, of course, is Biden handicapped her when she was his vice president. I mean, it's like having a treasure and put it kind of like under a plate and cover it, or put it even under the table. She was not used properly by the Biden administration as a vice president. And traditionally, America has made mistakes like this, where vice presidents were somehow specialized in attending funerals, but she could have done a lot more than that, and that would have helped her a lot. Her campaign will be different. I think her ability to appeal to youth is one, her ability to appeal to women, her ability to articulate. The president clearly has aged a lot, hasn't been able to communicate well, as we saw in the debate. And I think as a lawyer, as a prosecutor, she is a lot more eloquent than he is, well-versed in the issue, quick on her toes, as we've seen the past 2 days. So she might be able, I think, to put a different imprint on the campaign than in that sense than what we have seen from Biden.
Excellent. And of course, that explains why she had only a 25% approval rating as a vice president.
Nobody knew her.
Exactly. She didn't have the chance to shine or to really show her skills and abilities on the stage in terms of public speaking, public events. But that is now changing fast. With her trying to raise a lot of money, she was able to raise more than $100 million in just 2 days. And now she is raising even more and placing hundreds of phone calls to all the congressmen and senators and public officials to really kind of create some kind of support around her own elections campaign. Ambassador Maalouf, what do you think would be the most important domestic and international or foreign affairs issues that Harris would focus on if she were to become the next president of the United States?
Well, and I think first of all, it's the economy. She wants to show how the economy at the time of Biden was not bad at all, as Trump is trying to describe it. That's not true. And she will focus on the fact that President Biden has created 15 million new jobs during less than 4 years. This is the economy is always a very important topic, and she focuses on that. It's very important. Of course, the other topic is abortion. You know what the Supreme Court has done some time ago, and then it's something that the Democrats don't like. It's something that most women don't like, and it's something that President Biden was focusing on, and even he gave her some authority or some role to go and talk about that. So she will expand on this role in her role as a presidential candidate. And of course, she will focus on the taxes, the fact that Trump wants to give tax break to the rich people. That's something that doesn't sound well with the middle class. So she will focus on the middle class, on how President Biden did, and she will continue. I think she will say that she will continue the policy of President Biden in helping the middle class, fortifying for the middle class. So these are the things, the main points that I think that she will focus on. Of course, she will also talk about the fact that they will criticize her for the immigration and the southern border, and she will say clearly what President Trump did when the Republicans and Democrats reached an agreement for a draft law to control the immigration, and when President Biden called on the Republicans and told them to not accept this deal in order because he wanted to use it in the campaign. So I'm sure she will focus on that and blame former President Trump on what's happening on the southern border. That's what I think will be the main issue. And of course, many other issues on education and that, but these are the main issues that I think of.
And Mr. Jahshan, what about her expected foreign policy? What do you expect a Harris foreign policy to look like?
That is probably the million-dollar question in the sense that she hasn't been heavily used or involved in foreign policy before. We have only, like in terms of Middle East foreign policy particularly, only a few weeks to base our analysis on. If you remember her Atlanta speech to African Americans, where she departed from the normal position of the White House with regards to Gaza, and supposedly the rumor and was leaked to the media that the National Security Council had to apply brakes to her speech and had to revise the speech the last minute because her focus, unlike Trump, close to Trump, unlike Biden, who focused essentially on the security aspect of the war in Gaza and giving Israel ample time to finish the job, quote unquote, as Netanyahu made it very clear today, and thanked him for that. She focused more on human rights, on avoiding humanitarian crisis, on the need to bring in food. So somehow, typically, as a woman candidate and as more of a progressive candidate than Biden, she focused on the humanitarian aspect of the policy. Whether she will change with regards to other issues, if you remember some of the difficulties between the Biden administration and the Arab world, I'm not sure she will go that deep into, let's say, challenging Arab regimes with regards to democracy and so on. That usually takes a year or two before an administration. The advantage she has is that the other side has a stupid platform for the election. It's called Project 2025. And that is loaded with extremist and conservative agendas that the people in this country are going to have difficult time accepting if it is explained to them. And she is definitely equipped to explain that, including, for example, the closure of the education department and very radical ideas on health rights, particularly, as Massoud said, abortion, taxing, and so on. So she can basically, if she takes hold of that and dissects it and explains it to the electorate, she might really advance her own career much better.
Very good. So it's not going to be a replica or a duplicate of a Biden presidency. It's going to be a different presidency.
No presidency is ever a replica.
Excellent. We'll come back to this very important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3.
Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, We don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arab Network on all social media platforms.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're talking today about a very important and timely topic, the most important topic, the U.S. presidential race. What's next for America and what's next for Arab Americans? And joining me this morning to discuss this important topic are Mr. Khalil Jahshan, the Executive Director of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C., and Ambassador Massoud Maalouf, retired Lebanese ambassador who served in several countries. Ambassador Maalouf, if I were to come to you with a question, hypothetically, if Trump was to win the election, what would be his own priorities in terms of domestic and foreign policy?
God forbid, of course. Let's start by saying that, yes, there will be a big change if Trump, God forbid, wins the elections. First of all, in the domestic field, he has said himself that on day one, he wants to become a dictator. He said it in his own mouth. He also said that he wants to take revenge from all his enemies or all his adversaries. So we know then that's the first thing that he wants to do, is become a dictator. So the United States, the democracy of the United States will be reduced significantly. And the other thing, of course, then in the economic field, of course, he will give tax breaks to the rich. He has said it. That's part of his program, tax breaks for the rich. He's trying to sell this idea by saying that if we give them tax breaks, they will invest this money and they will create jobs. But it's not true. They take this money and they use it for other purposes. They're not necessarily creating jobs. And of course, he's going to focus on the southern border, on the immigration, the illegal entry of people, what they call the 11 million. He calls them criminals. He calls them coming from, I don't know, psychological places, things like that. It's really demeaning, and it's not American to talk like that about human beings who are coming to the States. And it's his fault if there is this huge, if indeed there is this huge number of people coming illegally here. It's because he has refused the draft law that was supposed to control this question, to put an end to this question that has been going on for many years, since the time of President Bush's son. So he is going to be a danger in the United States, a danger for the democracy, and of course the danger for the people who are against him. We don't know how he will handle that. In foreign policy, we know what he will do with Ukraine. We know what he will do with Israel. What he did in the past, he will do it again. No two-state solution, no UNRWA, nothing, no of Palestinian office in Washington, D.C. Of course, the embassy will stay in Jerusalem, and more support for Israel, and absolutely no support for Ukraine. And he will accept that President Putin will keep all the territories that he has taken by force so far. He will agree on them. And that way he will say, you see, I said I will end the war in one day. Of course, the war will be ended if we don't support Ukraine anymore, and if we accept that Putin takes whatever he wants to take. Ukraine won't be able to continue the war to defend themselves. So I think it won't be something good for the United States, for the world, not counting about NATO. We remember when 2 weeks ago the NATO summit, 75 years summit for NATO, was held in Washington. Trump was really a very important topic among the heads of state and government. They expressed among themselves their concern about Trump becoming president, and most of the summit could be called probably the Ukraine summit. So all this will change if Trump will become president again, unfortunately.
But let me play the devil's advocate here for a second and come to you, Mr. Jahshan, with this question. Despite all of that, there are still Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, who are willing to vote for Trump. They still prefer the Republican Party, and they still prefer Trump. Arabs for Trump, Muslims for Trump. What do you think is the logic, the rationale, and the motivation behind that?
I'm not sure I'm the best person, since I disagree with the whole concept, to kind of represent the rationale of this, but let me try. First of all, I think there is somehow in Arab culture and Muslim culture some kind of an attraction to strong personality, including leaders like Trump, particularly because of their quote-unquote success in business. I'm not sure how successful a businessman Trump is. He's certainly been a hustler. I mean, I'm not a businessman, but I know he hustled for many, many years and managed to manipulate both the economic and the legal system to enrich himself. And he continues to do that. He did it even when he was at the White House. And they continued to do that after the White House, particularly from Arab sources. You know, the fact of the matter, he made billions of dollars, he and his children, out of his presidency. From Arab sources. By the way, the Arab reaction, not just the Arab American, but the Arab reaction to Trump's candidacy is important to look at. We just published yesterday a new paper called Middle East Leaders Prefer Trump's Victory. I would recommend to those who are looking for an answer as to why Arabs are being attracted to look at that. It's arabcenterdc.org if you go to our website, and it's by our non-resident fellow, Gregory Aftandilian. Middle East Leaders Prefer Trump's Victory. And it shares the same rationale, if you will, like back to your question, as some people in the community do. But again, it's business interests. It's people who want to pay less taxes. It's people who want to be left alone to do whatever they want to do in business. It's people who could care less about paying better wages, people who could care less about immigrants, and so on. So to me, that is the main logic for the Republicans, but also the main logic for the Democratic campaign to counter, if you will, the Project 2025 and so on. But notice, by the way, the Abraham Accords that Trump advocated when he was president. I don't know if you heard Netanyahu today, when he spoke about that, about what he thinks that the only answer to the conflict in the region is war with Iran, to control Iran. And he suggested that this alliance that Trump initiated is the answer. And he said, and I quote him, "I propose to call it the Abrahamic Alliance." I mean, look at the manipulation of religion and Abraham for Machiavellian, if you will, reasons. So this is another logic, if you will, or another part of the logic for support for Trump.
And I think there is also the part about law and order. He is trying to show himself as a strong person who can really establish law and order by, keeping the country, quote unquote, safer. And by that, I think he means curbing immigrants in particular, while, as we all know, the Republican Party still remains to be the greatest supporter of having guns in people's hands. So he himself was shot.
Also, Sahar, don't forget that many Arab governments who tend to be oppressive and law and order, quote unquote, types, they support that logic, and they like Trump the way he treated Muslim immigrants to this country and Arab immigrants to this country, most of whom in recent years have been from the opposition, whether it's the Islamist opposition or the secular opposition. And the fact that he tried to constrain their presence here, limit their presence, limit their numbers, and limit their activities was welcome and still is welcome by several Arab countries and Muslim countries.
Very interesting. We'll come back to this very important and timely discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Clap your hands if you're happy and you know it and you really want.
5-year-old Lila and her mom are on their way home from Grandma's, singing Lila's favorite song. A few blocks away, 25-year-old Dylan is visiting friends at a small party. He finishes off his last beer,
Later, skater.
gets in his truck, and starts for home. Mom and Lila turn onto Maple Street.
If you're happy and you
So does Dylan.
If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray, hooray!
Every 50 minutes in the United States, someone dies in a crash involving a driver impaired by alcohol or drugs. If you're impaired and you know it, don't drive. Drive sober. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arab Network on all social media platforms.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're talking today about a very important and timely topic, the U.S. presidential race, what's next for America, and what's next for the Arab American community. And with me this morning discussing this important and timely topic are Mr. Khalil Jahshan, the Executive Director of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C., and Ambassador Massoud Maalouf, retired ambassador of Lebanon in several countries. Mr. Jahshan, I want to ask you the question of would there be any reason to expect a second Trump term if he was to win the election and become the president again? Can we expect to see a difference between Trump's first term in office compared to his second term in office, and why or why not?
That's a tough question because we're dealing with a totally unpredictable personality, frankly. If he were a politician with a record of multi-year record being a governor or being a senator or being a member of the House, what have you, a mayor, one could base maybe an assessment on that record. But he doesn't have a record. He's very unpredictable. He has made all kinds, and continues today to make all kinds of irrational statements. Massoud mentioned earlier several of those, threatening to be, a dictator on day one and avenging all his critics and putting people in jail, including the president of the United States and his family, the attorney general. I mean, they sound like crazy things, but these are not far-fetched for somebody like Trump. He has no respect for institutions. He has no respect for the division of labor among the different institutions of this government, the legislative branch, the executive branch, the legal branch, the court system. He's been fighting the court system since he was, I'm exaggerating a little bit, since he was 2 years old and got his first $1 million from his crooked dad as inheritance. So it's very hard to tell you that. But I can tell you this, from my political experience, a second term never resembles 100% a first term by any president. There has to be some differences. He has to bring in new people. Frankly, he can't bring the same old people. They're gone. And he is impatient. He's impatient with staff. He's known. He's famous for being impatient with staff. So he has to bring in some new blood. And most probably, some will apply brakes on his ideas. Some will maybe be even more radical, especially these types that have participated in the Project 2025. So they are apt to add a new dimension to his second.
Excellent. I'm afraid we're running out of time, but I cannot help but ask the $1 million question, the prediction of who is gonna win the race and why. Ambassador Maalouf, what is your own prediction or expectation as to who is gonna win this race and why? Briefly, please.
I personally think that, judging from how Kamala Harris has started her campaign, and if she can continue as the same way as she has started, I think she has a strong chance to become the next president. I would bet on that personally, but we still have 100 days. We don't know how she will behave during these coming days. Now she has started very well. I hope she will continue as she has started, and then she will be in the White House again, but as president, not as vice president.
Very good. And Mr. Jahshan, we're going to end with you. You're going to have the last word. What is your own prediction as to who will be the next president and why? Also briefly, please.
Basically, I think the Democratic Party is bleeding, continues to bleed. It's going to be tough for it to adjust and lead in terms of the campaign because of the limited time schedule. On the other hand, Trump is irrational. I'm not sure the American public will vote him in again. But I frankly think that the Democrats are likely to win, but they have an uphill battle ahead of them.
It's going to be a tough battle for sure. And I'm afraid we ran out of time. I want to thank you both very much for all the useful insights and wonderful opinions and information that you shared with our listeners and viewers today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks to all our listeners and viewers everywhere. Take care and goodbye.